Greetings, game fans. Welcome to yet another Superstar Select with me, Jane Douglas, and him, Seb Ford.
What a week it's been. We've been dodging spoilers of the ending of Mass Effect 3 and eating the Americandy Mark and Guy brought back from GDC in San Francisco. And then yesterday, out came the news that GameSpot's parent company, CBS Interactive, has snapped up fellow games website Giant Bomb.
And Giant Bomb founder Jeff Gerstmann and GameSpot VP John Davison took to the internet to talk it out. Hit up the URL on screen for more on that.
We didn't talk about this during the deal signing, did we?
Man, I really should have read the paperwork.
I know, you got to grow your hair out, you got to grow a beard.
I'm already on that.
But not before we've given you the game's news, feature goodness, and comments you crave. In the news, there's an honest-to-God actual Diablo III release date, but no new Xbox coming this year, apparently.
And in your weekly dose of feature fun, we focus on the steampunk beauty of upcoming sandboxy assassination title Dishonored, before tripping along into the feedback section. So that's the plan.
First up in the news, it's a global release date for Blizzard's long time coming action RPG Diablo III, and there's not long to wait. It's out on May 15. Blizz chief Mike Morhaime says, after many years of hard work by our development team and months of beta testing by hundreds of thousands of dedicated players around the world, we're now in the home stretch. So it's less than 2 months until you can shell out the £45 or $60 RRP for the standard edition, or £70 or $100 for the Fancy Pants Collector's Edition, in which you get a soundtrack CD, an art book, a 2-disc behind-the-scenes Blu-ray/DVD set, a 4GB USB Soulstone with full versions of Diablo II and Diablo II Lord of Destruction, and actual Diablo Skull Base, plus exclusive in-game content for Diablo III, World of Warcraft, and StarCraft II. That news comes not long after we heard that there'll be no player versus player battling at launch, though it will be patched in at a later date. That story featured in Monday's Start Select, and we've got some of your responses at the bottom of the show.
Second up in the news, it's another will they, won't they show us a new Xbox before the year is out story. And the word is, they won't. Bloomberg News' tech reporter Diana Bass tweeted that David Dennis, Microsoft's PR head, said there'll be no Xbox 720, Nextbox or what have you at this June's E3 or anytime soon, in fact. He says this year is all about the good old 360. In the Bloomberg.com story that followed, the site claimed other sources at Microsoft said they might be showing the new Xbox at next year's E3 in June 2013 and putting it on sale later that year. And in a statement, Microsoft said, while we appreciate all the interest in our long-term plans for the future, we can confirm that there will be no talk of new Xbox hardware at E3 or anytime soon. Which is a pretty definite note. Not the usual, we don't comment on rumour or speculation, so please stop asking. It's not the best news for anyone craving a new Xbox to spend their cash on, but hey, the Wii U's out late this year, and Nintendo must be pretty chuffed they'll have their next machine on the market with maybe a year's head start over Microsoft. Thoughts? In the comments below. Thank you kindly.
When Mark and Cam got back from Arcane Studios in Lyon, where they'd been treated to a brain-melting first look at Dishonored, we asked them, hey, what is Dishonored?
They gibbered something about man-eating rat swarms and teleportation and steaming some dude to death in a house of burlesque, so we said, okay, alright, what's the genre?
They muttered feverishly something about action, sandboxy, stealth assassination, adventure with role-playing elements, so we said, okay, alright, how's it look?
And they said it looks bloody lovely, and it does. Cameron even put together this little number on the painterly steampunk chic of Dishonored and its Victoriana-inspired city, Dunwall.
Dishonored is the latest stealth action game from Arcane Studios, headed up by Harvey Smith, the brain behind System Shock, Thief and Deus Ex. We took a trip to meet the Bethesda-owned developer in their Lyon studio, where we discovered that there's more to Dishonored than just stealthy sneaking and gruesome assassinations. For one, Dishonored doesn't look quite like any game you've seen before. Its unique art style is a creation of Victor Antonov and Sebastian Mitton. They told us how rather than chasing a photorealistic style, they've gone for a painterly stylized effect for their steampunk-inspired pseudo-Victorian game world.
It's a realistic game, a harsh, realistic urban experience, represented through the lens of, mystical photography and lighting and illustration rendering style.
I prefer to develop something that fit my vision instead of trying to look like other games where they use photorealistic textures or geometry. And it's a kind of approach like painters did in the past, trying to see through my lens.
It's somewhat of a historical piece. This could get very old and heavy and dark, and it needs some freshness and modern elements to it. So, history is often represented in a stylized way, because you don't know what it looked like exactly, and it needs some punch and contemporary feeling to it. So that's why we looked at illustrations about England in the 40s.
Dishonored's setting is as much the star of the show as its assassin hero Corvo. The action takes place in Dunwall, a fictional fantastic city that borrows from 1940s London.
A game setting is definitely as important as the main character, or even more, because you're in it, you see it more than the character. It is based on England and on London, and we did a lot of field trips, analyzed it a lot. And then every piece of science fiction and parallel reality, you have a real source of structure, history, and meaning to it. So that's why we chose a metropolis, a fantastic place like London.
Christophe Carrier, lead level designer on Dishonored, told us how the detailed city environments are designed to give players the freedom to explore and approach objectives however they choose.
We have the streets where we come back. I mean, it's the same group of streets, but of course, it changes throughout the game. It's the same architecture, but there are doors that are closed sometimes, and you can open them. These levels have a lot of verticality. This is something that I love in games, when you can basically go wherever you want to go. It's part of the assassin's fantasy to do that.
It's depth. It's rather than going in a big span and covering miles with a vehicle, one building is so meaningful that you can play through it as 3 different levels, because you can explore it in completely unexpected ways. Yeah. So it's about depth and density of experience.
As Antonov tells it, art is supremely important for enhancing the player's experience. Not just for making things pretty, the art of Dishonored is used for foreshadowing and relaying backstory.
The role of art in the gameplay is to foreshadow the experience or trick the player in the way that he feels that he'll experience something else, and then he'll get sucker punched by the gameplay, and the gameplay will have a higher impact. And secondly, rather than writing it and using talking heads to tell the backstory, you can just tell it through the environment, and you get a sense of depth and texture to the world.
We were shown the Golden Cat, one of Dunwall's iconic locations, and a lavish, opulent contrast to the gloomy city. It's a house of burlesque for Dunwall's wealthy elite.
An important part of the game is contrast of experiences, so sometimes the city is a bit dark and moody and scary, and of course you need to have a musicality to this, then go up to an open space, darker, brighter, and this is a very lush, colorful, baroque place that is a world within the world.
I pushed really hard for this location because I wanted, in total contrast with the whole world, it's like there are circles everywhere, it's colorful, like a punch in the player's head. I wanted him to start the level like in dark streets with rats, then open the doors and with a huge revelation.
Yeah, and I mean, when you have the plague and corpses and poverty, let's have some lust and beauty too, and sin.
And now we reach the part of the show where we freewheel down the gentle incline of user engagement, reading the words you wrote instead of the ones we did. It's time for your feedback.
It's the last thing we read before going to bed and the first thing we check in the morning, and from it we take the choicest cuts and serve them up for your pondering pleasure.
The Talk of the Games news town this week has heavily featured one Peter Molyneux. The notoriously enthusiastic game designer first announced his departure from Microsoft, then came news of his replacement, and he also spoke out this week in support of motion control gaming. Basically, he's saying Kinect games will get better soon, he promises. But it does leave us asking what's next on the horizon for Dr. Professor Molyneux over at his new mysterious studio 22 Cans. GameSpot user Varenti has one elaborate theory. 22 Cans isn't going to be a game development studio, but rather a way for Molyneux to pursue his original passion, carbonized beverage production. Will be the greatest pop that you've ever drunken. Imagine all the fizz from all the pop you've ever drunken combined. And now, double it. That is the bare minimum. The bare minimum fizz in the average can of soda from 22 Cans. We call it 22 Cans because it takes 22 cans for us to package a single can of drink.
Okay, sounds delicious. But moving on, what of that no PvP and Diablo 3 deal we mentioned earlier? We asked what you thought about Diablo 3 launching without player versus player, and you came back pretty positive about it actually. GameSpot user Scorpion1813 jumps in. I'm not waiting for PvP, and I'm glad I don't have to wait even longer to play a game because of a single feature I will never use. Blizzard can't afford to delay this game any longer, and no, that is not in relation to money, since WoW is a pretty fat cow indeed. I'm referring to the impatient fans who will likely go play another Diablo clone and possibly skip over Diablo 3 itself. But most importantly, the tech itself could become quickly out of date and would force the developers to practically remake the game like Duke Nukem Forever.
Amen! While user Eoj blames the dropped launch content for holding up the game this far. Diablo 3 is known for its solo game content anyway, so if PvP is not in, then so be it. Hell, PvP could be the single most reason why the game is not out yet. With PvP, you have to make sure all the classes are balanced between one another, and that takes time.
And the last bit of GameSpot gossip from around the digital water cooler is on crowdfunding platform Kickstarter. Over the past few weeks, we've heard how industry vet and funny man Tim Schafer is positively drowning in $1,000 bills after a request for fans to fund the development of a traditional point-and-click adventure game. Now InXile Entertainment is well underway to securing the coinage for a sequel to the 1988 title Wasteland using the same program. Is this the future of game funding, we asked, to which Chewy on Ice answered, I still think only a select few personalities, developers have the clout to successfully launch a Kickstarter project. It's great that this mostly includes game styles and sequels to games that people have been asking for. The games could still disappoint, not to mention the backlash if less respected, culty developers start doing it, and the ultimate dilution of support as more and more developers jump on board.
Well, before that tide of crowdfunding hopefuls comes washing in, let's take this opportunity to bring to light another project destined for greatness by GameSpot user Highlander Jim. Hello all! Give me $100 trillion and I'll make a follow-up to the 1980s classic I made on my VIC-20 called Flobly Nosh Nosh. Once the total reaches 500k, I'll introduce free DLC, squadmate Ron Shurak. His special ability will involve bending reality itself, where humans did not become the dominant species on Earth. All hail the ostrich master race. Boom Shankar! Well, I've already taken steps to secure a second mortgage to cough up that $10,000 donation.
You don't own a house.
You said it was mine.
And with our presenter powers depleted for another week, it's time to end the show. Look out on the site for the video game BAFTA winners later on this evening, and have yourselves a nice weekend now.
Until Monday then, it's so long. Farewell and see you again soon.
So these are awful, right?
They're just the worst. I call them fruit jerky.
I see. I get it. That's good. Hey, if you'd like to see more from Start Select, you've got to click up here.
And if you want to subscribe to GameSpot right here on YouTube, it's this button right up here. In the meantime, should we go see if we can find some Americandy with a bit more flavour.
Yeah, something to wash this down with.
Yeah, good call.